This is the place, all right. Once we cross, it could all be different.
Let's go.
Hey everybody, this is Cameron, and welcome to another episode of It Could All Be Different. This is the podcast video series where myself and Camcorder Cameron re-examine, rewatch season 3, aka The Return. How's it going, Cameron?
Great.
So today we're going to be talking about part 4. This is titled Brings Back Some Memories. It starts, which is basically where we left off in part 3, which is Cooper, now as Dougie Jones, is at the Silver Mustang Casino, and he is destroying the slot machines. The people who work there are bewildered at how this guy is having so much good luck.
Yeah, I love how Dougie never forgets his hello after every single win. The casino workers are all gathered around, like watching in horror as he wins more and more. And I love when the manager says, "I'm dead," after he hears that Dougie has won 29 mega jackpots. Like, they are screwed over. And the old haggard woman from the last episode is completely transformed because she's all full of glee. She again hits it big with the help of Dougie. All she's got to do is figure out where he's pointing.
And the comic timing is just impeccable.
Yeah.
There's not one moment of where you're like, well, I know that was supposed to be funny, but it's not funny. Like, it all hits.
Right. He has a very particular sense of humor, and it's not for everyone, but I find it funny.
I think it is for everybody in this part.
Yeah. In this, yes, I can agree with that.
Yeah, we also see Ethan Suplee, who became famous for a lot of Kevin Smith movies in the 90s, like Mallrats. He's standing with Sarah Paxton, who Aquamarine, right? And then also The Last House on the Left remake.
Yeah, and she's in Halloween Town. She's in the Halloween Town sequels. I love her. She was like huge whenever I was a kid. She was like in all of like Aquamarine was my favorite movie as a kid, so I love her for that. But she was in a bunch of Disney stuff as well when I was a child.
You know, when you first saw the series, you would see people like David Smalchian, Ethan Suplee, and Sarah Paxton and think, God, their parts are so small. But on rewatches, it's fine. You know, there's another moment too later on where Richard Chamberlain shows up as the doorman for Denise at the FBI office. And it's like, this guy led so many epic miniseries on TV back in the early 80s. And now he's just like the doorman to David Duchovny's character. So it is bizarre how many names they got for this, even for the smallest of parts.
Yeah, I mean, I like to imagine that a lot of the actors are just fans of the show or fans of David Lynch and Mark Frost, always wanting to work with them. I mean, I would do it. I would do it as a background actor.
One thing I like is when Cooper as Dougie is approached on the casino floor.
Bill and Candy Shaker.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was his wife or whether that was like his mistress in the casino or whatever. But they mentioned the fact that Dougie lives on Lancelot Court near Merlin's Market. And of course, in Rancho Rosa, they passed Sycamore Court. And this all ties into the final episode of season 2 with Glastonbury Grove, where Cooper says that's the legendary burial place of King Arthur. And then Jack Nance says, King Arthur's buried in England.
Yeah.
So there is this thing that Frost is bringing in with the whole Sword in the Stone King Arthur legend, which I find really interesting. I'm not sure where it goes in this series.
It feels a little bit out of place in Twin Peaks, if I'm being honest. But I don't disapprove. I'm just like, oh, random King Arthur references here.
The first 4 parts of this new season kind of front loads all that. It is one of the threads that I feel like kind of disappears as the series goes on.
So yeah, he's Dougie is approached by the two, like, I guess Bill was an old colleague of the original Dougie. So he approaches him and he's like, "Hey," and Dougie obviously is not himself and he's just repeating home. And he has this far off glazed look. And Bill just isn't getting Dougie's new demeanor. Like he's almost like, "Why are you acting like this? Like what's happening?" And that's kind of, I've noticed the way that all men treat Dougie, and it reminds me a lot of American Psycho. It's how like the men are too preoccupied with their own world and social politics to ever actually hear anyone else. Like they don't even actually notice a difference in Dougie's demeanor.
His wife,
Yeah.
who's never met him before, seems to know right away intuitively that there's something wrong.
Yes, she immediately feels compassion for Dougie, and I've noticed that's typical of pretty much all the other women that interact with him as well. So there's kind of like this gender divide with how people react to Dougie and seeing him act differently. So yeah, Dougie, he mentally notes like, "Oh, okay, I live on Lancelot Court." And they end the interaction with, "Is he okay? I hope he's okay. I don't think he's okay." And they kind of like both agree that he's not okay. They feel some pity for him, but not actually enough to do anything about it. Which I feel like is similar to how his mistress treated him whenever she dropped him off at the casino. She was like, "Okay, I think you've had a stroke or something, but bye."
Cooper's Dougie gets taken to the back of the casino, and you think this is going to be some like dark, violent scene or something, and it's again very funny the way that Cooper's Dougie is like mirroring the guy's movements, and so he looks more threatening than he is.
That "come back again" line is said like a threat.
Yeah.
Come back again, see what happens.
It does make you wonder. It's like, if this happened in real life, would they really talk to you like that in the back room?
I noticed he's like being very hostilely kind, right? He's like, "We're so happy. Congratulations, sir. We'd be happy to set you up with a room, get you some like women, hire women." Basically trying to talk Dougie into spending more money at the casino because they're so like hurt by his big earnings. And it seems like they suspect him of cheating. Obviously, that's where the hostility is coming from. And I think it's so funny how whenever like Dougie like hears the electricity in the surveillance camera above him, so he looks up at it, and the supervisor kind of takes that as a confirmation that Dougie's a criminal.
Now, you mentioned the electricity in the security camera. I was trying to figure out why he was looking at the red dice. I didn't know, maybe he was looking at that because of the red door reference, or if there was something else.
Another thing I noticed about the scene, and I was kind of picking up on it on earlier episodes, but because Dougie is so suave and well dressed, he immediately has everyone's respect, and they don't take his behavior as odd. Like he's in this office acting totally not normal, but he's like, a big buck winner. He's got on this nice suit. They're not like, "Oh, this guy's clearly not in his right mind." They're just like, "This is how this rich man acts."
I think that's just the way society is with rich people, right?
Or had it been that old woman, how would they have treated her?
She almost looks like a witch.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time I saw her, I was like, "Oh, is she a woodsman?" But I don't think she is. I think she's just someone who's financially struggling.
Although,
but not anymore.
Yeah. Although that would be amazing if Cooper's Dougie just made all the woodsmen rich and they decided to leave the Black Lodge and go about their life.
Yeah. Go into the earthly delights.
So you mentioned the gender things. I wonder if that is only the men that knew Dougie before, obviously Cooper made the switch, because the limo driver is extremely nice to him.
Yeah.
Even going so far to wait with him until his wife comes out.
See, I wanted to ask you about that. So yeah, he drops him off and he's waiting until his wife comes out. But I was like, is he just waiting to get tipped? Like awkwardly, like waiting, like, okay, you can release me. Where's my tip? He was very nice.
Now, the first time I saw this, I remember the owl going overhead. And then later on, there's a kitchen scene where we have like this owl cookie jar in the
I
background.
wrote that down too. Yeah.
Right. And I remember thinking, okay, this is heading into some weird, dark Bob material. And because the Black Lodge was guiding him as to what machines to choose, I don't think it's an ominous thing at all. I think it's a way of the Lodge to let Cooper know, like, hey, we still got your back. Hang in there.
I thought the owl flying overhead kind of was menacing because, like, you see it in this black sky, and then the limo driver is like, those things really creep me out. So I was like, okay, it's supposed to be creepy. I always take the owls to be like Bob's personal spies. He has everywhere.
I'm not saying it's not menacing to others. It's just not menacing to Cooper anymore because Cooper has been one with the Lodge for 25 years.
Yeah.
So it might creep out the limo driver, but Cooper doesn't even notice anymore.
Yeah.
So Janie E explodes out of the house, and we're like, oh boy, here comes Naomi Watts. She slaps him. And now that you've seen the whole season, you know, you can kind of understand, obviously, where she's coming from because of who Dougie was before that Tulpa got sent to the Lodge and got his head popped off. But the first time you see this, you're like, what is going on here? Who is this lady? We talk about all these other actors who come in for these small little parts. And Naomi Watts, she's one of the few actors who actually has like an entire arc in her character. It's great to see.
Yeah. And I just want to say, I think she's totally valid in her anger. She's like, you've been gone 3 whole days, no word. I don't know where you went. And you missed Sonny Jim's birthday on top of everything. That's unforgivable.
Obviously, who the Tulpa Dougie was, I can't even believe that she would tolerate him for that long.
Oh, right.
But,
like, yeah. That is one thing that bothers me. Whenever you get to know her and her son, it's like, what was the house like before Cooper stepped in? What was his dynamic with his child and his wife as like the sleazy Dougie?
I get the feeling like the Tulpa Dougie wasn't really around a lot, but then Sonny Jim seems very bemused by his dad in this new form.
Yeah.
And just so that I don't forget, I just want to point out that the name Sonny Jim comes not only from one of Lynch's paintings, but the name was also used in The Elephant Man. So this is a name that Lynch has used a few times. Just the choices of names. We have Janie E and Sonny Jim. These are not quote unquote normal names, but they stick in your head. So you remember them because there's a lot of characters in this season.
I wonder if anybody's named their kid Sonny Jim.
I'm sure.
Who loves Lynch.
Right.
Maybe me. Maybe I will be the kid. Mom. Anyways, so yeah, she's pissed, right? And he's holding this sack of money, his earnings that he got from the casino. And she noticed it, and she kind of stops in her tracks. She's in the middle of yelling at him. She sees this, and then she's back to being angry because she's like trepidatious about where this money came from. Until Dougie points to himself, and he says, "Mr. Jackpots." And then she's so relieved. She gets it. She's like, "Oh, you won this money?" And she's in disbelief, and she cries for joy since the money can now be used to pay off their debts. And my favorite line in this scene is, "This is the most wonderful, horrible day of my life."
Yep.
I love that line because even with this massive blessing of cash to save their family, none of that washes away the memory of throwing her son a birthday party and feeling abandoned and worried sick by her husband.
You also notice in the background, because there was a birthday party, there are red balloons, which of course call back to the squatter's house in part 3 with the red balloon.
Yeah.
And then later at Dougie's work, we'll see a lot of red balloons there as well. So that's another motif. I think we talked about this before, but how Nido, if you say it backwards, it's O Diane, but it's missing the E. And so people say, where did the E go? Well, there's Janie E. And of course, the E stands for Evans, which is Diane's last name. And later on, we find out that Diane and Janie E are stepsisters.
Wow. That's almost too much for me to wrap my brain around. How did they come up with that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I do think it's so sweet that Janie E saved him a slice of birthday cake. Even with how mad she was, she's like, oh, I saved you some cake.
I always like Naomi Watts' character in this season. You understand exactly where she's coming from at all points, and then you just learn to embrace like this whole family unit. You want them to be successful. You want them to win.
Yeah.
David Lynch is always on the side of the protagonist. He wants them to be happy. He wants them to succeed. They may not always succeed, but he's not rooting against them. Some filmmakers actively root against the main character they're making a film about.
I love that perspective.
So the next scene is when Gordon goes to visit Denise, who is heading the entire FBI now, or as they say, Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, she's the HBIC. Head bitch in charge.
I love this scene. However, it does make me wish that David Duchovny was in this season more.
Yeah.
But I also think it was because David Duchovny was filming X-Files season 10 at the same time. Sometimes I do wonder what it would have been like if it had been Gordon, Albert, and Denise instead of Tammy the whole time.
Yeah. I think that's a universal feeling amongst Twin Peaks fans is we love Denise and we want more of Denise.
I want to get your opinion on this because there is this great speech that Gordon gives to Denise about how, you know, when people were making fun of Denise behind her back, that Gordon was the one that stepped up and said, hey, you know, fix your hearts or die. And people use that all the time on social media, especially to like bigots online. However, I don't think it's as clear cut as people want to say it is. Denise is basically saying to Gordon, like, why are you taking Tammy?
Yeah, let's back up a second, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because before we move on, I do want to add that David Duchovny is so good at embodying this character. He has this perfect, slinky, seductive walk whenever she walks over to her desk and sits down. Cole informs her about the situation with Cooper being in federal prison in South Dakota, but Denise already knows all of this, of course. Denise asks if he's bringing Preston with them, with a displeased tone. At first, I mistake this for jealousy the first time I watched it. I was like, oh, is Denise jealous about Preston? But then it becomes obvious that Denise is just looking out for Preston. She knows Gordon Cole's reputation with beautiful young women. And so she just wants to make sure he has the right intentions with working with Preston.
And I think this goes back to the scene in season 2 where Gordon's in the Double R diner with Shelley and kisses her in front of Bobby.
Yeah.
I think there's a part of Gordon saying, hey, why are you bringing up my baggage when I could easily bring up yours?
I think it just reads as really defensive. You know, she is really just being protective of Preston, and he's taken aback by it. And instead of being like, yeah, I hear you. Thanks, boss. I'll keep it clean. No funny business here. He gets defensive and he's like, do you remember a time whenever like I was higher up than you were in the FBI and you depended on me? And then I also think it's just like really uncalled for to bring up Denise's transition. Like, he's basically talking about how he stuck up for Denise through all that and was a good friend to Denise through all these years. So why are you coming at me now? But Denise has like every right to say these things given his track record. And I don't think it's a kind thing to bring up. I think like talking about somebody's transition can be very triggering for them.
That's when you start digging under the surface, which is what you do in a David Lynch film, right?
Yeah.
Like the opening of Blue Velvet. That's where the discussion is. We know that Gordon ultimately is a good person.
Yes. I think Gordon's character he's like this pervy old man. Have you ever seen the old Western Once Upon a Time in the West?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that scene at the very end whenever he's talking to Jill I don't know the character's name. Cheyenne's talking to Jill, and he's like, it really uplifts men to have a pretty woman around, and if they stare at you, just know it's because you're making their day. He kind of gives a speech along those lines. That's the way I interpret Cole, and even David Lynch to be. Like, he likes to appreciate beauty. He's gonna surround himself with beautiful model types because that brings him delight, but I don't necessarily think, he's doing anything nefarious.
There's not too much of a difference between Gordon Cole and David Lynch.
No, that's literally what I wrote down. I said, I have a feeling David Lynch has received this talk of warning a time or two in his life.
And it made it into the script.
Yeah. Oh, and did you notice how Denise doesn't dismiss Cole until she confirms that Albert will be there with them? She's like,
Right.
Okay, Albert's going to be there. All right, you're approved. You can go now. But would she have approved it if it was just those two? I don't know.
Probably not.
I like that you brought up the screenshots because that's totally right. Taken out of context, it seems like, an empowering, kind statement. But within the scene, it just is kind of callous when it's said that way.
All right, so then we cut to the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department, and Lucy's talking to Sheriff Frank Truman on the phone. The family photo of her, Andy, and Wally, which is the most bizarre Photoshop family photo I've ever seen.
They could have put that same picture on a shelf in the background, kind of out of focus, and it would have looked fine. But because they put it so up front in your face, and the focus is on that picture while she's on the phone fiddling with the thermostat, it feels like they purposely kind of made a meme almost. They're like, this is a silly image. We want you to laugh at this. That's why we put it here.
Right. So Frank Truman comes in, shows Lucy the phone, and she like flies backwards because they wanted to do it in one take. It seems like kind of cartoonish the way she flies back. It's almost like they sped it up or something.
Yeah, because she's on the landline talking to Truman, and he's out in the parking lot. And there's kind of like a throwaway line whenever he comes in with his cell phone and she like screams. And he's kind of like, dude. And Truman's like, I just couldn't stand out in the parking lot that whole time. I'm sorry. So this is something that happens before. The girl can't wrap her head around cell phones. And did you notice, I think this comes into play later on, that the Twin Peaks Sheriff Station seems to be like a dead zone where you don't get cell service because he's cutting in and out, and that's why he just comes in.
So this part is our introduction to Frank Truman, played by Robert Forster. Now, I don't have any evidence of this, but I believe that Frank Truman was always supposed to be Harry Truman. And because Michael Alkin didn't come back, they just made it a different character. And it kind of makes sense the way Frank Truman like responds to the idea of Wally Brando being here again and things like that, because it seems like Wally's been gone for a while. And so I'm unsure as to how long Frank Truman has been in charge of this sheriff station. I really love Robert Forster as an actor.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with the change. And also, I'm not sure if you know this, but Robert Forster was originally cast to play Harry Truman in the Twin Peaks pilot, but had to back out. And so they got Michael Alkin instead.
I didn't know that. That's so cool. And then, Mulholland Drive, he's in Mulholland Drive as like one of the detectives that finds the car crash.
Right.
And that's another time when he was kind of snubbed out of being a David Lynch TV show, because Mulholland Drive was originally supposed to be a TV show. So that was a character where he was in it for just one scene, and he's not in the rest of the movie. But had it been a series, he would have been a regular.
Yeah, he would have been the Agent Cooper of the series.
Yeah, so it feels full circle to finally get him, in a David Lynch TV show.
And he's always just been a likable actor. Whenever I see him in anything, I mean, Quentin Tarantino says the movies he's in may not always be great, but he's always great in them.
Yeah. And think about it this way. We don't get Cooper as we know him from the original series pretty much at all until the end of this season. So had we had the original Harry Truman there with no Cooper, it's like, why even be there at all? I love their chemistry together. It would have felt off.
So maybe Michael Onkeen heard, what? I'm never with Cooper? That's all right. You know?
I love to like make romance edits of Cooper and Truman, Harry Truman.
So one thing that is quite apparent is that Frank Truman has taken over the sheriff's station, and he keeps Lucy, Andy, and Hawk around because presumably, you know, that was his brother's group. But it's clear that he doesn't think much of their investigative abilities because he has the real police in the back room.
Yeah, they're like the like senior members, right? Like when somebody works for so long, you can't even, I mean, you can fire them, but it would be cruel. It's like they've had this job since they were like young adults. Why fire them now? This Truman never met Cooper, right? He doesn't know him. And I think a whole experience of the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks is whenever Cooper comes in, he's big shot FBI agent. He has so much respect for the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department. Even though Andy isn't the smartest, like Cooper believes in him and Cooper believes he's fully capable of his job.
But I don't get that impression with Frank Truman.
No, I don't either. And I almost wonder if had he been in Harry's shoes the first 2 seasons, would he be doing the same relationships where he just kind of has them off to the side? Or would he have a lot more respect for Lucy and Andy?
Yeah, I get the vibe like he inherited the sheriff's department, saw the crew he was dealing with, and said, yeah, they're nice people. I'll keep them around, but we got to run a tight ship. You know, then I've had some people say, well, how do we know that that wasn't the case in the original series? It wasn't the case in the original series. There was no elite police force in the back room. I'm sorry, folks.
It was just them.
So then Truman goes out to the hallway, and this is where we get our reintroduction to Bobby Briggs. And we are surprised, I guess, that he's now a law enforcement officer.
Because Bobby killed a guy.
Yes, he did. And he not only killed a guy, he killed a cop.
Yeah. He kind of has like this melodramatic, because we see him from the back down the hallway where he like turns around. And if this were a sitcom, like I know they would have had like the live audience go like, woo, woo, at seeing this actor reprise his role.
But there is a little Easter egg for longtime fans. And that is they're talking about how this boy at the high school overdosed. And Truman's asking Bobby about, like, you know, are perimeters set up at these trails? And Bobby's like, yeah. And Truman says, all known trails? And Bobby's like, yeah, because Bobby used to run drugs into town from Canada. So he would know not the normal roads. He would know all the side ways of getting in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love how Truman kind of suggests that it's like these designer Chinese drugs that are coming in. And Bobby's like, no, these are coming from Canada. And like you said, he would know because he's done it before when he was a young rascal. What do you think about whenever Bobby says, I gotta take a leak so bad my teeth are floating?
It's a piece of dialogue that unfortunately conjures an image in my head that I don't want to have.
Yeah, it's so crass. We do have an interlude scene where Andy is talking to Lucy as if she were a toddler. And he's reassuring, you're so good at your job. You're so good at your job, Lucy. We love you. I just don't understand why you can't understand cell phones. And she's like, I don't get it either. And she just like stares off in the distance, like in shock. She's still rattled from that experience. In
the original series, they're played so sweet and so endearingly, and they are as well here, but there's something off about it being 25 years later and they're still the same. And I think it's because when the doppelganger came out of the Black Lodge, time has evolved, but the people haven't evolved. So like Shelley's still at the diner, you know, Andy, Lucy, and Hawk are still at the sheriff's station. There's there's this feeling that like time has gone by, but people are still stuck where they were.
Yeah, like Andy and Lucy have never been the smartest pair. That's kind of where the comedy comes in with those two. But the amount that they infantilize Lucy in this series is so weird to me because, like, she's an adult woman. You don't have to talk to her like she's a baby. I don't like that. For me, they don't really start to feel like themselves until we get Wally. Then I'm like, okay, I see the old Lucy and Andy that I know and love here. But every other interaction we've seen with them prior to Wally, it's like, who are you guys? Oh, whenever we hear about the child that overdosed at school, we get a little throwaway line where they're like, Andy had to tell the parents. And they don't say anything more about it, but if you're a fan of the show, you know how that went over. You know, it was probably sobbing
Right.
his eyes out.
All right, so then we go to the conference room and we have another character that comes in, Deputy Chad, played by John Piercello, who is, I think, in the running for one of the main bad guys in this season. He's just a complete jerk off.
It's an appropriate name. Like, you know how people say Karen this, Karen that to talk about like mean white women who are entitled. For me, like, I always refer to the male equivalent as Chads. It's just like a frat bro name. I like whenever Hawk is kind of giving the rundown to Truman about Margaret's message. She says, I know she seems like a strange one, but her info is always spot on. That's true.
So I wanted to ask you about this because on this rewatch, it made me think, how long has Frank Truman been in charge of the sheriff station? Why is Hawk having to say this to him? Because hasn't Margaret given him clues about things before? Because then Chad says, well, I thought, she's not allowed in the building. So I'm confused as to like, what does the sheriff state? Because they don't seem like they understand her at all. I don't know. I'm very confused.
We had more time for that clarification because I was confused about that as well. Especially because of the line when they say I thought she wasn't allowed in the sheriff's station. That gives her the impression of like this paranoid old woman who's just staring out her window all day, like making note and calling the sheriff's office about a random car she's never seen before. It makes her look like this maniac whenever that we know that's like not who she truly is. Like, she is psychic. She cares about people, and so she wants to like prevent bad things from happening when she knows they're going to happen. But even with all of like her involvement with the sheriff's station aside, this is a small town. He would see her at the Double R Diner. Like, they would say hi whenever getting coffee, right? Like, where is their relationship with each other as like two people who live in Twin Peaks, I wonder.
And if she was kicked out of the sheriff's station, who kicked her out?
It wouldn't have been Hawk.
Right. So
or Andy or Lucy.
It's,
and so Deputy Chad, he's immediately skeptical. He's like, okay, this lady's crazy. Truman is keeping his mouth shut. He's not saying he doesn't believe it, but he's also not saying he believes it. He's just listening. And I love how Andy and Lucy enter and hear Chad like kind of say these mean things about Margaret. And Andy fervently defends the log lady. He's like, you're not about to make fun of my log lady.
But Chad isn't making fun of the log lady just because he's a jerk. It's because he is guilty. So if Margaret is right, that could mean they're one step closer to him. So he has to dismiss her altogether so people don't listen to her about anything. But, Cooper in season 1, when he's at the diner and the log lady comes up to him and says, my log saw something that night. Cooper takes his napkin and says, really, what did it see? And she says, ask it. Now, he is a very trusting soul. Mm-hmm. However, even in that moment, he's bemused that she's saying the log saw something. It's not until later when they go to the log lady's cabin and she's describing hearing the sounds of Laura Barnett in the woods, when Cooper leans forward, now he's invested. He now believes that the log saw something.
Chad is kind of doing a little bit of career self-sabotage. Like in Twin Peaks, if you want to be in the inner circle of the sheriff's office, you have to have an open mind and a caring heart, which he clearly does not.
The other team that Frank Truman hired, they seem like they came out of like Seattle. They don't seem like people who grew up in the town of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I got that feeling too. They seem very professional.
So then we get to probably the most memorable moment of the entire episode for longtime fans, which is Bobby Briggs walking into the conference room, and the Badalamenti music swells, and he sees Laura Palmer's picture, and he immediately is reduced to tears. And he says, wow, brings back some memories.
I love it. I want to scream, but you're wearing headphones, so I won't. But yeah, the music plays Laura Palmer's theme, and it's that da 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 da, and he's like, Laura Palmer? Like the way he says it, it's almost like he's seeing her ghost in this picture. It's so sweet. Bobby starts crying, which gets Andy going. You know, Andy's starting to tear up. I love it.
And you can see Lucy holding onto Andy's hand. Now, I have another theory about this, because obviously it's bringing back a lot of memories, as Bobby Briggs says. Could it be, with all these case files opening, that they may discover that he once killed a cop?
We both know that Laura and Bobby did not do a good job covering up that body. There's just no way.
This is a Band-Aid being ripped off at this point. And yes, it's bringing back memories because Bobby dated Laura. Bobby cheated on Laura with Shelley. Bobby used to deal drugs with Laura. Bobby killed a man with Laura. It's a lot of information going through Bobby's head.
This is the first time we hear Laura Palmer's theme in the series. This season. It's so good. I mean, that's got to be one of Badalamenti's like masterpieces, that song alone. And it's overused, and I don't mean that as a bad thing, because it's good. It's a very good song, and I never get tired of it. But it's overused a lot in the first 2 seasons. So it's just so interesting to get it on episode 4.
Yeah, they really use the music sparingly in this season. This is where we find out how the doppelganger, of course, Bobby thought it was Cooper, went to visit his dad. Then the next day, his dad supposedly died in a fire. So we know that's not true, because if you go through the 2 books by Mark Frost, The Secret History and The Final Dossier, and also what we discover in this season, that Major Briggs faked his death in the fire and was moving through time and space with the lodges, because he, of course, was talking to the principal, Bill Hastings, and we'll learn more about that later.
What I think about this is that it is like a master example of good mystery writing. This scene alone, I imagine like this is, you know, Mark Frost taking the reins with this scene, because the bits of information they deliver and the way it's delivered is so captivating. Because Bobby just casually mentions Cooper's the last person to see his father alive. He doesn't really bring it up for any particular reason. And then Truman and Hawk are like, oh, we didn't know that. So we kind of get a little bit of a gossip kind of dynamic here, where they're like, do tell us more. And then it just gets worse, where he's like, yeah, you know, he talked to my dad, and the next day Cooper disappeared and my dad died in a fire. Never thought about it since. And you're like, oh my God, that is suspicious. We're figuring things out. We're turning the mystery in our head. That must have not been the real Cooper. It was obviously the doppelganger, etc., etc.
And we, of course, have seen Major Briggs already. We've seen his floating head in space saying Blue Rose. So we know that he's involved somehow. But yeah, it's the great writing. It's the great performances. The editing is flawless because it's timed perfectly. And then, of course, putting the Badalamenti music underneath it all just seals the deal. And it's like, oh, this is old Twin Peaks. We're back. We're in the sheriff's station.
Yeah.
Let's rock. And I love the way the actor James Cricksoni walks into the room and just positions himself like this. There's a Wally Brando here to see. It's like, what?
And he says he wants to pay his respects, which is immediately just bizarre, because that's something you do to somebody in mourning. So you're like, what's he paying his respects for? We'll find out.
So we get introduced to Lucy and Andy's son, Wally Brando. Now I have a question for you. Do you think that Wally Brando is indeed Andy's son, or do you think it's Dick's son and Lucy just chose Andy as the father?
I always thought it was Dick Tremaine's son, but obviously it's, Andy's the father because he raised him. When we see him, he is like in this embroidered leather jacket. It says his name on it, and he's like leaning up against his motorcycle.
So he's dressed exactly like Marlon Brando in this movie called The Wild One. And Shia LaBeouf actually did the same look in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Now, of course, fans of Twin Peaks know that Marlon Brando directed only one movie in his entire life, and it was called One-Eyed Jacks. What do you think of Michael Cera's performance?
I freaking love it. I love everything about Wally. He's awesome. He is like the perfect son for those two, because he's coming to wish Harry Truman to get well soon because that's his godfather. And so he wants to pay his respects, and he gravely wishes it. Like, he's just so earnestly melodramatic. He gives all his love and respect to everyone present, like he's making a speech at a funeral. He gives his parents a blessing to turn his room into a study, which is a hard decision for a young man to make. And I like how he recognizes how sweet his parents are. That's the most important part about Wally to me, is he in no way takes them for granted. He's like, I have the best parents in the world. And he does. They love him. Like, you can't have two people love you more than Lucy and Andy love Wally.
Lucy hugs and kisses him. She raises her foot up.
Yeah, her little leg pops. Oh, it's so cute. And they're like, tell us about your travels. Because he's kind of,
Some sort of Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, he thinks he's like a beatnik writer or something. Like,
right.
He's very reminiscent of that. So he kind of does his travels, and he goes on these like long-winded poetic monologues, which I absolutely love. And I love how like Truman, he's like ready to go. So he's like, okay, goodbye. And Wally just like sits like waiting for more because he doesn't expect people to just say goodbye and leave. And so then Truman's like, an equally poetic thing to say, may the road rise up to meet your wheels. And Wally receives that so earnestly.
Now, one thing that Wally does mention is Lewis and Clark. Mm-hmm. And that is a huge part of the first section of Mark Frost's book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks. What Wally says has nothing to do with the book, but the name drop of Lewis and Clark does.
I love it. I love it. And I love how he's honestly just as cool as James. But Michael Cera playing him kind of makes it even funnier because at least James is like this hunk of a guy. Like, you would totally see him. He's an easy writer, right? Wally, kind of nerdy looking, but he's just as cool.
But I love when Frank turns around to walk back and Lynch has that shot on his face where he's just like, oh, what the heck is that?
I'm not going to be having family dinners over there.
I think the first time people see this, they're really confused by some of these scenes because they go on a long time. They seemingly go nowhere,
yeah.
And then the more you rewatch the season and how the season unfolds, you can kind of enjoy these scenes unto themselves because this is the only time you get to meet this character. So that's why we're taking so much time in this scene because they don't come back. The scene gets funnier the more you see it.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think the scene is just so needed because that was a loose end. Lucy's pregnancy, where we left off in season 2, she was pregnant. And that was a big plot point of that season. So we needed them.
It's kind of a clever way to get back to that plot point without making it like take over the season. All right, so the next scene is Cooper is sitting on the bed and he gets a message from Mike in the Black Lodge letting him know that he was tricked and that the whole point was for, the Tulpa Dougie to be pulled into the lodge and let the doppelganger reign free on the planet, but Cooper made his way out. So now there's two of them. And so one of them has to die.
Bombshell. So I love how the scene starts with Dougie sitting on his bed staring at his iconic lime green suit jacket. You know, you think of Dougie, you think of his suit jacket, this green one. And I love how Janie E has picked out his outfit for the day, laid it out in the bed. Like, she is wifey. She is awesome. And so what I thought was interesting about this scene is Mike is walking in the Black Lodge, and we see the usual endless chevron floors and red curtains. But it seems like, you know, he's in that same place as Dougie is, just on another level. And he's like, you see me, don't you? Which once again shows that Mike is not in on the scheme. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, but he's puzzling it out. And I love how he holds up the little golden ball from the last episode. That was the real Dougie.
Right.
Kind of funny to me.
And then we get this moment that kind of calls back to the ending of the season 2 finale of him looking at himself in the mirror and seeing the aged face.
Yes. And I thought this was interesting because with Kyle MacLachlan's performance of himself staring at the mirror, you almost wonder, like, something's going on. Like, this is triggering something in his mind.
I think it's also Cooper seeing himself for the first time in nearly 3 decades.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that.
It's almost like he is acknowledging how much time has gone by and how he's missed out on so many things in his life. Then he sees Sonny Jim in the hallway. And it's funny how Sonny Jim just never talks in this entire part. But he does give his dad a thumbs up, which, of course, makes Cooper remember his thumbs up. And it's kind of a sweet little moment there.
The way that nobody seems to notice a difference in him, but at the same time, they're bewildered by his behavior. And I feel like maybe they kind of explain it towards the end where they're like, I really knew you weren't actually Dougie because it couldn't have been. But what is Sonny Jim thinking right now when he sees his dad? Like, what does he make of his behavior? He just thinks it's funny and silly. But it always strikes me as bizarre.
You would think that somebody who had the Tulpa Dougie as his father would be a little bit more messed up than Sonny Jim is. I get the vibe that the Tulpa Dougie just wasn't around very much and that the son was brought up by his mom primarily.
I don't know. In my experience, at least with my nephew, it just seems like boys kind of like latch on to like having older male figures in their life. Like I see it when my nephew interacts with my boyfriend. It's like, I don't know, like I can be the perfect aunt, but I cannot compare whenever my boyfriend wants to play with my nephew. Like they just have that bond immediately. So I don't know. It seems like he's just like ready to have a present dad. Finally, he's like, I've been waiting for this moment.
So then we transition into another amazing scene in this part, the kitchen scene with Dougie coming in to have breakfast, and it's all perfectly paced with this music. They got this little jazz music going on.
It's like very upbeat too.
Yeah, and Kyle comes in with the tie around his head, which I just love. I absolutely love it. And he sits down and, you know, there's not a lot of dialogue in this scene. It's just basically Naomi Watts making breakfast and Cooper sitting at the table looking adrift and Sonny Jim just being amused by everything. But it's so perfect. And of course, when Cooper downs the coffee, not knowing it's hot, and spits it out and has that amazing look on his face. Of
it's like the best thing he's ever tasted in his life. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also burned his mouth. Yeah. And he just looks so horrified and shocked. To me, this is like a perfect comedic scene.
Me too. I love it. I love how like Sonny Jim, he's kind of like, it's like he sees his dad as like playing a game of pretend. It's what it feels like to me. Like he's being silly at the dinner table and Sonny Jim's kind of playing along. And this is when we see the like cartoon red owl cookie jar in the background, which I'm always like, why? What does that mean? It probably doesn't mean anything. It's just there, but I'm like, oh, it has to mean something.
Oh, I think it definitely means something. I think it's just the ever-present of the Black Lodge being there with Cooper
Have you ever seen the movie The Lighthouse?
a long time ago. Yeah, it's the one with Robert Pattinson, right?
Yes, I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. But anyways, there's this like scene where they drink, they're drunkardly in that movie and they take a sip of like kerosene or something because they run out of alcohol. And Willem Dafoe like slugs it down and then he screams, "Monkey pump!" And like it's niche. If you haven't seen the movie, then you don't get it. But like that is the same moment as Dougie drinking this hot coffee and saying hi. Like they're both just like jacked up from this delicious stuff.
All right, so the next scene we go to Buckhorn, South Dakota. The coroner has got a hit on the fingerprints and it needs military authorization, which of course we will find out later that it's Major Briggs. They're continuously just teasing this information.
It's so thrilling to me. Like, I don't even know if I was putting two and two together about Briggs the first time I watched this. Yeah, but I think that piece of information is like perfect for you to solve that puzzle. It's like, it's not too obvious because we have a lot of FBI people in the show. But yeah, I love it.
All right, so then we go to Gordon and Albert in the back of the limo. And I have to ask you, since you're a big film fan, how do you feel about all these process shots in the back and in the front where it's very clear they're on a soundstage and not driving?
Oh, I don't mind it. I think this scene is so funny, so it adds to it. Because we have that classic gag where Cole is hard of hearing. So then Albert is like explaining, because Preston's got her head out the window and Cole's like, "What's up with her?" Albert's like, "Oh, she's car sick." And then he's like, "Albert, car sick isn't here." People misunderstanding each other is so funny to me.
That from this point in the part to the end credits is as thrilling and as like intensely watchable as like the ending of episode 14 of season 2 when Maddie died, or it's one of those long stretches of time that once they get to the prison to the end of the episode, you cannot take your eyes off this episode. You're so invested in what's going on that you're just like, oh my God, just tell me everything.
I wholeheartedly agree. It was so hard for me not to just immediately watch the next episode when I was done with this one. I could have, but I didn't.
It's something else. And, sometimes it feels like, Frost and Lynch are teasing little things or sometimes they're being coy with certain amount of information. Here, you're getting almost everything you need to know, even if sometimes it feels cryptic. If you just think about it for a second, it's not that cryptic. It just sounds cryptic, but it's so compelling. The performances are just out of control in all the best ways. So let's just get into it. Yeah. They get to the prison. Albert and Tammy and Gordon, they're showing all these things that they found in the doppelganger's trunk, but of course they think it's Cooper. And when they cut to the mugshot of the doppelganger and Gordon says, "Holy jumping George," you feel that. It's like Cooper taking his first pee in 25 years. You can imagine if you have not seen Agent Cooper in 25 years and then the first image you see is, a 60-year-old man with his hair all like that. It's frightening.
No, and the way he's posed, it looks like a gritty cover of a magazine. It does not look like a mugshot. It looks
Rolling Stone magazine.
Yeah. It's funny, but it's not funny and it's random. The contents that are found in his truck: a brick of cocaine, a machine gun, and a dog leg. And I love the line, "Apologies in advance for Albert." Classic. Like anywhere you go with Albert, you really do have to preemptively give that apology.
Just an astounding sequence is the interrogation scene with the three, Gordon, Tammy, and Albert, interrogating who they think is Agent Cooper, but it's really the doppelganger. And wow. Mm-hmm. The voice modulation they put on Kyle is so awesome.
It's disturbing.
But I also think it's because he's from the Black Lodge and having to do with electricity, his voice is going to sound different going through the electrical speakers.
I like that theory. Like, we've seen him talk, and that's not how he actually sounds. Like, it's some kind of malfunction with the speaker, but it sounds like he's speaking in slow motion, and it's completely emotionless and robotic. It's so sinister.
So he meant to say, it's very, very good to see you again, but he reverses the first one. So he says, it's very good to see you again. So he says very backwards at first. And that's what throws Gordon off.
I didn't hear the backwards thing. I love that little detail. Yeah, I assumed it was like, I've talked about before how all of these people from the Black Lodge have this alien idea of how they think humans are supposed to interact. Like, he knows he's supposed to say something like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, friend. But because he's not a human, really,
Right.
he's not sure exactly how to say it right.
Culminating in the creepy as the wall's coming down.
And let me just say, that is a genius piece of directing there, to have him give that sinister thumbs up, because like it juxtaposes the scene earlier whenever we see Dougie give a thumbs up to Sonny Jim. And that is a moment of pure joy that makes his son laugh. And here we get this deadpan thumbs up, and it's like horrifying everybody who sees it. Now,
Right.
It's like good versus evil with these two.
And we also get the name drop of Philip Jeffries.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my God. So this 1.5 minute scene in Fire Walk with Me that everybody just dismissed because it didn't make any sense because they edited most of the scene out is now playing this huge part in this season.
That was, I had to be like one of the most surprising things to me when I watched this season for the first time was how integral Philip Jeffries actually is.
Yeah. So we get a little bit of intrigue about Albert dealing with Philip at some point in the past.
It's obviously it's meant to be confusing, right?
Sure.
Because this is the evil doppelganger. He claims he's been working undercover with Philip Jeffries since he disappeared from Twin Peaks, and that he was on his way to debrief Gordon Cole about his activities whenever he had the accident. That's his cover story, and he repeats the same line over twice like a broken record. Messages so Philip knows it's safe whenever he's asked what messages. That is so perplexing.
Well, yeah.
I've seen this and I still don't understand that.
It's almost like a computer, right? Where you have to give the proper command for the computer to respond. And the doppelganger did not get the proper command, so it repeats the previous sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's another thing that makes Gordon go, something is definitely off.
Yeah. So they tell him that they're not here to release him yet, but they're going to work really hard to try and get him home. And when he says home, he says, I never really left home. Ooh, and this droning, whirring music is playing underneath, and it's so unsettling. And what does it mean? I believe it's, again, like aliens' attempt at human pleasantries, but it could also mean that the real Cooper never left Twin Peaks. He was there the whole time, just in this alternate Black Lodge dimension. Going back to what I was saying earlier, where it seems like you can walk in the same places in the Black Lodge as on Earth, but you're in like two different rooms, even if it's the same room. That's kind of the way I interpreted that.
We talked about the thumbs up in this scene and how that is juxtapositioned with Cooper as Dougie doing the thumbs up to his son, right? Here we have the doppelganger saying, I never left home, Gordon. And what does Cooper as Dougie say at the beginning of this part? But home. So he's so innocently saying home in the opening, but by the end of this part, he's saying, I never left home, Gordon.
And what does that mean?
It almost doesn't matter what it means. What matters is the feeling it gives you, which is ick. And like, this is creepy.
Yeah. And as they say goodbye and the window shades close, he holds that creepy thumbs up smile.
My goodness.
It's like he's posing for a picture the way he's frozen with it.
That's the kind of thing that David Lynch does so well, is you're just like in awe of what you're seeing. It's funny. It's scary. It's weird. and you understand it, like emotionally, if not intellectually, that this is bad news. All right, so then we cut to them walking out into the prison hallway, and I love this moment where Gordon says, Warden Murphy, I expect you to give him his private phone call, and I want to know all about it.
I always thought that, I mean, I like that line, but I'm like, as if Bob would ever fall for that. Like, he knows his private call is going to be tapped.
Well, and of course, in a later part, we see what happens when he makes his private phone call.
Yeah.
Right? He shuts down the whole prison.
Yeah,
So,
and they kind of the prison guards give this word of warning. We can only hold him 2 more days until we charge him. So, like, he's going to be released in 2 days. Time is ticking. And that's, like, scary because this guy is so freaking creepy. You don't want him back out in the world.
all right. So then we go to another of my favorite scenes in this entire season, which is the airport tarmac scene, but it's filmed all in blue.
But I think this is the nastiest moment to me, is whenever Preston, like, walks off and she's strutting away, and the whole time from the moment she turns away until she's gone on the other side of the door, they're like watching her as she walks away and oogling her body, and they're like, ugh, like, it's just creepy. Like, I think it's supposed to be funny, but, like, I don't think it's very funny.
Well, Albert even says, I feel better now. After
Yeah,
like,
I hate it. It's like you guys are just like staring at her butt while she's walking away. Like, as someone who gets stared at in public, like, it's not a pleasant experience. I mean, she seems pretty confident in herself.
well, minus that moment, I love this entire
Agreed.
sequence.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because I feel like usually David Lynch playing Gordon Cole is very humorous and funny and just kind of a big performance. And here, I feel like David Lynch is giving a real acting performance. Like him and Miguel Ferrer as Albert. I've never seen David Lynch be so subtle, especially as Gordon Cole.
Yeah.
And it's like a real conversation. I kept waiting. I remember the first time I saw this, which again, this part played the first night it premiered. So we went from part 1 through part 4 all in one night. And I was just like enthralled by how long the scene was going on. Even with a little bit of humor with the moving of the foot and stuff like that. Like it's funny, but it doesn't break the mood. And you're just, you're there the entire time. And when Gordon says, do you know where she lives? And Albert says, no, but I know where she drinks. I cannot tell you how many people thought that night that they were talking about Audrey. And I remember thinking to myself, it has to be Diane.
Yeah.
Because why would Gordon and Albert be referring to Audrey Horne? Like, that would make no sense.
Yeah.
They don't even know who Audrey is. They never dealt with her.
So, for clarity, Albert admits to Cole that years ago he authorized Jeffries to give Cooper information about their man in Colombia. After Philip said Cooper needed the information urgently. And a week after Albert did this, the man had been killed. And there's a good moment where Cole hears that, and you just like see him in real time processing this information. Like you said, David Lynch is being a wonderful actor here. He's like, Albert, staring off into space, like coming to terms with what all this means now. And this is the quietest we've ever seen Cole, because he's got his hearing aid turned all the way up, which, like you said, plays into the comedy of the scene because every little like toe tap sounds like a train horn in his ears. But he's doing it so he can like whisper and speak privately. But like you said, it just like teeters the balance perfectly of like being funny, but then also like my jaw is dropped with all this information you're giving me. And I like how Gordon says, talking about Cooper, I don't think he greeted me properly if you take my meaning. And Albert agrees. So
Because he says the very
greeting,
backwards.
That greeting was the thing that tipped them off. They were like, oh, this isn't him. And they both agree that it's a Blue Rose case, and they discuss a certain person to bring to Cooper. And that's when we say, I don't know where she is, but I know where she drinks. Love it.
Now, David Lynch says Albert 3 times, which reminds us of when Major Briggs was talking to Cooper, showing him the graph of the sounds coming from space, the Cooper.
Oh my gosh. That's also one of my favorite moments in Twin Peaks.
Do you think that Albert was really talking to Philip Jeffries, who then gave this message to the doppelganger? Or do you think he was talking to the fake Philip Jeffries that the doppelganger was talking to in the motel room?
Yeah, because like there's so much going on, you almost forget about that little phone call in the motel where he's like, I'm not Philip Jeffries. And he's like, who are you? And it's this mysterious voice, another unanswered thing so far. But wow, I don't know. I assumed it was the real Philip Jeffries, but now that you say, it could have been.
And then we go right from that moment to the band in the Roadhouse. Again, I think the moment they get to the prison, to the end of this episode with the song playing, I cannot take my eyes off this. It's just, It's like 15 minutes of sustained, like, oh my God, they're really doing this. They're taking this material seriously, but also having fun with it. And it feels like we're getting Twin Peaks in a way we've never had before. And yet it's giving us all the goods in a way we didn't expect to see, but we're still getting paid off. Like you said, with Wally Brando answering the whole thing about Andy and Lucy's kid. You're just sitting there like, oh my God, you are not just spoon feeding me nostalgia crap. You are continuing the story, but in a way that gives me all the nourishment I want as a fan, but you gave it to me in a whole new way. You know, I love this whole season, but part 4, this is a very strong hour of entertainment.
Yeah, here's my final thoughts. The mystery continues as the police departments of Buckhorn, Twin Peaks, and the FBI each try their hand at understanding the situation without realizing they are all working on different pieces of the same case and need to come together to solve the puzzle. We're left worried for Cooper's safety since we know Bob needs to kill him in order to survive as the doppelganger. How will Dougie defend himself in his slow amnesiac state? And questions also surface in this episode like, who is the man in Columbia that Philip Jeffries told the doppelganger about? And who is the mysterious woman Cole and Albert want to see? You'll have to watch next to find out. Or if you're like us, you already know.
Yeah, and now the doppelganger is in the same prison as Ray Monroe.
Oh, right? So he got arrested purposely for that, you think?
No, I think that his whole plan was to sort of somehow shut down the prison, go in there and get Ray. But he ended up crashing, ended up just because there's a fate aspect to this whole season where things need to be in place, right? The stars align, a time presents itself that even if the doppelganger crashed, she's still going to end up in the prison. It has to happen this way for things to move.
It worked out in his favor.
Yeah. So in the same part, we get Kyle being a complete goof in the breakfast scene in the kitchen. And then a few minutes later, he's the doppelganger in the prison. It's 2 entirely different performances. And I mean, I've always loved Kyle as an actor. I think that his range in season 3 is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's career defining. Not that he needs it because he's been in everything, but I think this is the best he's ever done.
It's hard for me to say that just because I love his characterization of Agent Cooper in the original series. And of course, I love Jeffrey and Blue Velvet. But there is a lot more range because he's playing a lot of different characters and stuff like that. I think all the actors are bringing it.
I'm so happy to finally have Janie E in the show. Like, she's such a titular character that you forget she's introduced in episode 4.
Yeah.
There's 3 episodes without her. And I felt the lack.
You know, it's so much fun revisiting this with you. And again, I will say this to anybody who didn't like it maybe the first time they saw it, watch it again. It gets better and better because the first time you're watching it, you don't even know where it's going. How is this all connecting with each other? And now that you know the whole span of it, you can kind of look at the details and see that, like, yeah, there is method to the madness here.
Absolutely. I do think the first time I watched it, I was so preoccupied with missing the agent Cooper that I knew and loved. I was like, when are we going to get him back? When is he coming back? When is he coming back? Every single episode, I'm waiting for Dougie to go away. But little did I know how much I would soon come to love Dougie as his own person.
And again, it's not that Cooper turned into Dougie. It's always Cooper on screen. Mm-hmm. It's just that he's been fried. And so that makes me think that, some of his subconsciousness is still in the lodge somewhere because he's kind of processing everything. So when I hear people say, oh, I don't like it, it just was not like the original series, I go, yeah, it wasn't. But neither was Fire Walk with Me. That wasn't like the original series either. Every incarnation of Twin Peaks, whether it be the movie, a Mark Frost book, Jennifer Lynch's diary, or even season 3, each new incarnation takes the series to a new level.
Yeah. And it's better for it.
Yeah,
I'm having a blast rewatching this with you. It's been so fun.
All right. Well, thank you, Cameron, again for joining me in this discussion. It's always great. We have 14 more of these to go.
Yeah, we'll be here. It's a joy.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. All right, everybody. We'll see you soon. Take it easy. Bye.